You awaken in a tiny, windowless cell that reeks of sweat, terror, and olive oil. The cold stone walls press against your bare skin, and distant laughter drifts from the main house. It is the kind of laughter that twists your stomach into knots of fear. Your body aches from the previous night, bruises blooming in shades of purple and yellow across your ribs like a sickly flower. The iron shackle around your ankle has chafed your skin raw, dried blood flaking off when you shift. Heavy footsteps echo on the marble floor. You recognize the sound immediately. The overseer is coming to prepare you for another day of what they call service. Your hands tremble as you reach for the thin tunic gathered in the corner. At 15 years old, though you have lost count of birthdays since your capture, time feels warped when you belong to someone else. The door scrapes open with metal rubbing stone, and harsh sunlight floods the room. Squinting, you lift a shaking hand to shield your eyes. The overseer's bulky silhouette fills the doorway, a mountain of muscle and scars. His face is a map of cruelty forged by years of breaking young spirits. "Clean yourself," he growls, flinging a damp cloth at your feet. He says the master has guests arriving tonight, important visitors, and you will be helping to entertain them. His eyes scan your body with the cold precision of a trader evaluating livestock. Your throat tightens. You understand exactly what this means. You have known since the first night they dragged you out of your village, fighting and screaming, since they informed you that your family's debts had been settled, using the only currency left to you. This was the harsh truth. For countless young men in ancient Greece, not the polished version taught in schools, where philosophy and democracy shine so brightly, they obscure the darkness behind marble pillars and lofty conversations. Beyond the symposiums and political discussions, there existed a system that exploited the vulnerable and discarded their humanity, as if they were shattered pottery. Before we delve into these overlooked tales of endurance and hardship, if you love uncovering hidden historical truths, consider pressing that like button and subscribing for more content like this. Also, please comment below to share where you're tuning in from. It's amazing how we are unraveling these ancient narratives together from different corners of the world, united across eras by our common curiosity about the past. The selection process had started long before you realized what was happening. Maybe your family was indebted to a powerful landowner, or raiders had ravaged your village during one of the countless conflicts that plagued the Greek lands. Perhaps you were born beautiful in a society that treated beauty as a commodity, meant to be harvested and traded. In the rural settlements spread throughout the Greek countryside, families lived on the edge of survival. A failed crop, an injury to the father, or a death in the family could tip the balance into utter despair. Any one of these hardships could plunge a household into debt, and when the debt collectors arrived, they showed no interest in empty promises or anticipated income. They demanded payment in full. Imagine a small farming village nestled within a valley surrounded by olive groves. The homes are modest, made of mud bricks and thatch, with dirt floors and single rooms where entire families sleep together to keep warm. Children roam without clothes between houses, their joyous voices blending with the bleating of goats and the faint noise of women grinding grain. Life here is tough, yet it remains life. Then the drought arrives, week after week of relentless sunlight scorching the parched crops. The ancient olive trees bear only shriveled fruit, and the barley fields turn dry and fragile. The wells that have been the village's lifeline for generations begin to dry up. Families are forced into heartbreaking decisions no parent should face. First, they sell their livestock, the goats and sheep that represent their only source of wealth. Next, the few precious heirlooms passed down through many generations are sold. When those are spent, parents begin to look at their children differently. Slave traders arrive like vultures, sensing despair. They set up shop in the village center, their chains and ropes coiled like metallic snakes. Their records list names and prices. They offer immediate cash in exchange for long-term agreements, 20 years of servitude for enough silver to keep a family fed through the bleak times. In winter, it might seem reasonable, even kind, when children are literally starving, but you are 12 years old. You don't grasp the harsh math of desperation, yet you only know that your father avoids your gaze while negotiating your price. Your mother turns away when the trader inspects your teeth as if you were a horse. You sense rough hands probing your muscles, measuring your worth. Words like promising good breeding and fit for household work reach your ears, but their meaning escapes you for now. The merchant places coins made of silver into your father's palm. The metal glints in the sunlight, each coin standing for a year of your life. Your father's hands tremble as he accepts the money, but he does so all the same. Your mother hides her face and cries quietly, yet she does not stop the deal. They assure you it is temporary, that you will earn money and come back home a man rich enough to own land, maybe even marry. They vow you will be treated kindly, learn useful skills, and that this is a chance for progress. The lies flow from their mouths like honey, dripping from a broken comb, sweet but deadly. The trip to the city turns into a nightmare of shackled necks and sore feet. You become part of a human caravan, dozens of boys and young men bound together by iron and hopelessness. The older ones remain silent, having discovered that hope is merely another word. For future despair, the younger children cry out for their mothers until their voices fade, or the overseers silence them by force. You trudge through scenery that could be stunning under other conditions. Rolling hills adorned with olive trees, coastal routes where the sea glistens like countless jewels, mountain paths beneath soaring eagles, yet none of it reaches your awareness. Your entire existence contracts to the span of the chain linking you to the boy ahead. Your steps pound on stone as you march, carrying a growing certainty that returning home will never happen. At night, they fasten you to stakes hammered into the earth. You lie on your side in the dirt, hearing the faint sobs of the other boys, while feeling the iron encircling your neck, a collar of destiny. Occasionally, the merchants bring guests to examine their human goods. These are men with gentle hands and sharp eyes, moving among you like farmers assessing livestock. They probe and inspect carefully for signs of illness or injury, judging your suitability for various types of service. Soon, you recognize the different sorts of buyers. Those seeking agricultural slaves desire strength and stamina, boys able to toil in fields from dawn to dusk. Household owners look for a contrasting trait, compliance, intellect, and a particular delicacy that promises no trouble will arise. Yet, there is a third kind of visitor, and their arrivals fill you with dread the most. These men wear elegant clothes and speak with refined manners. Their accents hint at costly fragrances and fine wines, and their fingers sparkle with rings. When they inspect you, Their touch lingers in a way that makes your skin shiver. They are searching for something precise, a blend of youth and attractiveness that has nothing to do with hard work, but everything to do with indulgence. The slave market in Athens overwhelms every sense. First, the noise strikes you. Hundreds of voices bargaining, crying out, pleading and commanding. Then comes the stench. Unwashed bodies, anxiety, sweat, urine, and another odor you cannot quite place that makes your stomach churn. Then you see it and realize why the older slaves advised you to keep your gaze downward. Naked bodies lined up like goods on display, children barely able to walk, standing beside their mothers with wide, confused eyes, and elderly men broken in spirit and bent over, their worth measured by whatever strength remains in their worn muscles. Buyers circle like predators, pointing and debating prices as though the people on the stands cannot hear them. You are scrubbed clean and massaged not out of kindness, but because clean items sell for more. The oil makes your skin shine in the sun, emphasizing the lean muscles you have built during the journey. Someone has decided you are too attractive for field labor, and you are placed among the household slaves meant for indoor tasks. The auctioneer's voice echoes across the square. At the market, as Lysander describes your characteristics, your age, your place of origin, your physical condition, he mentions your attractive appearance and calm demeanor, secret signals that draw certain buyers closer with interest. The bidding starts modestly, but rises swiftly as more men join the contest. You remain motionless on the platform, trying to vanish within yourself, while unfamiliar hands inspect your body. Someone pries your mouth open to examine your teeth. Another tests the firmness of your grip, and a third runs fingers through your hair, remarking on its feel and shade. You are no longer seen as a person, but rather an item appraised for purchase. The successful bidder is a man called Lysander, though you will only learn his name later. At this moment, all you notice is the pleased grin as he counts out the silver coins. His eyes already claim you, even before the deal is finalized. He appears middle-aged and well-fed, with soft hands that show no signs of physical labor. His garment is costly silk colored in rich purple, signaling affluence and high rank. There is something about his gaze that makes you want to flee, despite the chains that make any escape unthinkable. Lysander possesses a grand residence in Athens's affluent district, a home larger than your entire village. Its marble pillars and painted walls host detailed mosaics portraying gods and heroes. Servants rush through the hallways carrying plates of food and attending to the household's every need. Their movements are swift and restless. You observe that many among them are young men, each strikingly handsome in unique ways, yet all carry the same expression of hopeless surrender. This is the look you start to recognize as the mark of captivity. The overseer who takes charge of you from Lysander is named Demetrius. He was once a slave himself, bought when he was young, and advanced through a mixture of cunning and brutality. Today, he governs the household slaves with uncompromising severity, fully aware of how to break wills and maintain obedience. As he guides you through the house, Demetrius outlines the rules. You will receive food twice daily, barley porridge in the morning, and bread with olives in the evening. Clean clothing will be provided once a week. Bathing will happen only when ordered. You will eat and sleep strictly on command. You are allowed to speak solely when spoken to, and must never gaze directly into the eyes of a free person. Disobedience is forbidden, regardless of the command's nature. Then comes the chilling decree that sends a shiver down your spine. You exist to serve the master and his guests in whatever way they demand. This duty may include pouring wine, serving meals, cleaning chambers, or offering entertainment. Demetrius reveals with a cruel grin that the true meaning of this entertainment will reveal itself in due course. Some slaves resist at first, he adds, but rebellion brings suffering. Compliance, however, may lead to certain advantages like better meals, a warmer place to rest, and perhaps even a few small personal belongings await you in your new quarters. These accommodations are located in the basement of the house, consisting of a row of small cells where the male slaves sleep. Each cell includes a straw mattress, a thin blanket, and a chamber pot. The walls are constructed from thick stone to dampen noise, a precaution you soon come to understand. This step is necessary as the other slaves greet you with a blend of sympathy and caution. There is Marcus, a boy close to your age who has been here for 2 years. His eyes hold deep sorrow that seems too profound for someone so young. Then there is Alexios, older and marked by scars, who shares in hushed tones the details about the special visitors to the house and their expectations for the entertainment provided. Among them is also Philemon, barely 14, but with an expression burdened by experiences far beyond his years. He once belonged to a small merchant family until his father's business collapsed and creditors took everything, including the children. He has been in the house for 6 months and is the one who reveals the harsh truths behind what actually occurs during the symposiums. In Greek culture, the symposium was celebrated as a drinking gathering where learned men assembled to discuss philosophy, politics, and art. These events were regarded as refined occasions filled with intellectually enriching conversations among the greatest minds of the ancient world. However, the real experience was often quite different, especially when wine was flowing freely and the guests' demands grew more intense. For more personal amusement, the slaves were expected to offer not only food and drinks, but also themselves. The philosophers, who spent their days discussing the essence of virtue and justice, showed no hesitation about using young slaves for their desires during the night. These very men who composed exquisite verses about love and honor treated their human possessions as mere playthings, to be used and abandoned freely. Philemon recounts the rituals of preparation with a detached tone, as if narrating someone else's experience. The slaves are bathed and oiled until their skin shines smooth, then dressed in special tunics made from thin fabric that clings to their bodies, designed more to seduce than to cover. Occasionally, they are adorned with golden bracelets or necklaces to mark them as decorative rather than practical. The symposium begins with formality, as guests recline on couches arranged around the room, engaging in discussions on contemporary issues, while slaves serve wine and bring out elaborate dishes. The topics may include the nature of democracy, Socratic philosophy, or recent military endeavors. These men are educated and refined, proud of their intellectual prowess. However, as the night advances and the wine loosens tongues, the mood changes. Serious philosophical talks give way to cruder entertainment. Stories become bawdy jokes, debates fall into boastful contests, and the slaves who had been silently attending at the room's edges suddenly become part of a very different scene. They place themselves at the center of attention, and it begins with simple requests like pouring wine for a particular visitor, massaging the shoulders of another, or offering grapes to the man seated on the corner couch. Each task appears harmless enough. Yet, over time, you start to recognize the subtle signals. Conversations quiet suddenly as you approach. Lingering touches occur that have nothing to do with serving wine, and certain guests watch your every move with a predatory gaze. The very first time you are chosen for this so-called special service, you are too innocent to grasp what is truly happening. A guest, a man old enough to be your grandfather, asks you to join him on his couch. He invites you to share his wine and says he wants to talk about your homeland and your family. His questions seem gentle in the beginning. Where are you from? Do you miss your home? Are you being treated well? His hand rests lightly on your shoulder as he speaks, then slowly slides down to your back, then even lower. You try to pull away, but his grip tightens. Other guests are watching now. Their conversations fade as they turn their attention to the unfolding scene. What happens next is seared into your memory with a painfully sharp clarity brought only by trauma. Your protests are ignored entirely. Your attempts to resist are met with laughter from the onlookers. The terrifying feeling of powerlessness as hands hold you down, as your clothes are torn away, marks the brutal end of your childhood in the most horrific manner imaginable. Afterwards, confined to your cell, you lie on the cold stone floor staring up at the ceiling, struggling to comprehend how such darkness could have come to pass in your life. The world can harbor unimaginable cruelty. Your body may ache, but the emotional scars run far deeper. You are no longer seen as a person. You become an object to be used and thrown away, a source of amusement for men who compose verses praising the beauty of the human spirit. Yet, this is just the beginning. Over the coming months, you come to realize that what happened on that first night was relatively mild by the household standards. Some visitors have particular tastes and inflict specific torments, while others vie to see who can most completely shatter a slave's spirit. The overseer promotes this conduct, understanding that slaves who are broken are easier to control. You learn that the household functions through a complicated abuse hierarchy. The newest slaves endure the harshest treatment, serving as fresh prey for the guests' cruel desires. Those who manage to survive for a while may advance to different positions, such as personal attendants to less brutal masters, or kitchen helpers who seldom face guests directly. However, rising through the ranks demands more than mere endurance. It requires the total abandonment of self-respect and the readiness to aid in your own dehumanization. Some slaves tried to fight back. Marcus, for instance, attempted to flee during his first month, only to be caught and punished so severely he limped for several weeks. Alexios once declined a degrading command and ended up spending 3 days chained outdoors without food or water, exposed to the elements as a warning to everyone else. Resistance manifests in numerous ways during enslavement. Some captives withdraw so profoundly into themselves that they resemble living corpses, present physically, yet absent mentally. Others adopt a calculated shrewdness, learning to read their master's moods and avoid harsh penalties by careful observation and obedience. A fortunate few find release through death, whether caused by illness, injury, or overwhelming despair. Death then serves as a grim liberation. It is common to witness captives refusing food, ignoring commands, and losing all desire to survive. Overseers promptly replace them as there is a constant influx of young bodies at slave markets. The psychological strategies employed to break enslaved people are both cruel and complex. Isolation stands out as a powerful weapon. Victims are separated from everyone familiar to them, surrounded by others equally powerless. While fellow captives may offer some comfort, they cannot provide protection or genuine hope. Another tactic is unpredictability, never knowing when summons will come, what will be demanded, or how severe punishment might be for minor errors. This relentless uncertainty generates persistent fear that erodes resistance more potently than physical pain. Yet, perhaps the most harmful method involves stripping away personal identity. They take away your original name and replace it with a new one, reducing you to a mere number or label. It sounds more exotic or appealing to Greek ears when they prohibit you from speaking your mother tongue or observing your family's traditions. They clothe you in their attire, provide you with their cuisine, and compel you to worship their deities. Gradually, deliberately, they erase everything that defined your identity. The visitors to the residence represent the elite of Athenian society: affluent traders, government leaders, famous philosophers, celebrated artists, men whose names are remembered in history as great contributors to human progress. Yet, within the private walls of Lander's dining room, they abandon their public faces and expose desires that would horrify their admirers. There is Dionysios, a respected statesman recognized for his speeches on justice and civic responsibility. In public, he defends citizens' rights and speaks eloquently about society's ethical foundations. In private, he takes pleasure in degrading young slaves, making them perform humiliating acts while reciting verses from Homer. Then there is Cleomenes, a prosperous merchant who finances public projects and is lauded for his kindness to the poor. His philanthropic image conceals a fondness for brutality that leaves slaves physically and emotionally wounded. He views his harshness as an educational tool, arguing that suffering imparts essential lessons about society's natural hierarchy. Most unsettling of all is Sophist, a philosopher who composes essays on ethics and the essence of a good life. His public lessons, the significance of virtue, self-discipline, and honoring the divine order is strongly emphasized. However, when wine loosens the tongue and clouds the heart, a person transforms into a creature who defends every act of cruelty with complex philosophical reasoning. Such individuals do not perceive their actions as contradictory. In their view, slaves belong to a separate moral category from free citizens. The virtues applicable to relationships among equals simply do not apply to property. A person may show generosity and kindness to neighbors and peers, while remaining merciless to slaves without feeling any inconsistency. This ethical blindness permeates the entire Greek society. The very culture that created splendid art, pioneering philosophy, and innovative political structures also accepted the total dehumanization of whole social groups. This contradiction is not accidental, but fundamental. The leisure that enabled free citizens to engage in intellectual and artistic pursuits was sustained by the labor of slaves. Over months that become years, you develop survival tactics unthinkable to your younger self. You learn to interpret the subtle cues revealing a guest's mood and desires. You identify which actions are likely to bring rewards and which will invite punishment. You perfect the skill of psychological withdrawal, seeming compliant outwardly, but retreating so deeply within that your inner self remains invulnerable. Yet, such survival bears a heavy price. Every compromise with evil chips away at a vital part of your soul. Each moment you yield strengthens the harsh lesson that you are powerless, useless, and expendable. The boy who once ran joyfully through olive groves transforms into a hollow-eyed young man, drifting like a ghost trapped in his own flesh. The other enslaved individuals become your only family, united by common suffering and shared protection. You develop a secret code of glances and gestures methods to communicate warnings and offer solace without alerting the overseers. You share the scarce food you can spare, take turns keeping watch during the brief hours of rest granted to you, and hold each other close when nightmares become unbearable. Yet even these connections are warped by the system that forged them. Rivalry for the master's favor can turn comrades into adversaries. The hope for improved treatment might tempt someone to betray an escape plan or report a minor infraction of another enslaved person. The very bonds that preserve your sanity also become instruments of your subjugation. Some nights, lying on your straw mattress, in the pitch dark, you try to summon your mother's face, but the image fades with each passing month, replaced by the visages of your tormentors. You struggle to remember your father's voice, but it is drowned out by the laughter of guests and the cries of fellow slaves. Your past slowly slips away. The memory feels distant, like a fading dream, while your current horror seems to stretch endlessly toward an unimaginable future. The physical mistreatment is relentless and takes many forms. Some guests favor their cruelty to be subtle and psychological. They exercise control that leaves no visible bruises yet creates profound wounds within the soul. Others are more straightforward, employing fists, whips, and heated metal to brand their dominance on enslaved bodies. There are also those who derive pleasure from intricate tortures, blending physical agony with sexual degradation in ways that are beyond description. However, it is the casual attitude toward brutality that proves the most shattering. A guest might interrupt a philosophical debate to strike a slave merely out of boredom, or another might break off a poetry recital to demand even more humiliating actions from the evening's performers. The violence is neither passionate nor personal. It is as habitual as pouring wine or lighting lamps. The slaves learn to regard their bodies as foreign shells, vessels for consciousness that do not truly belong to them. You develop a capacity to detach yourself during the worst moments, observing your own pain with a calm curiosity. This coping mechanism comes at a steep cost, a growing detachment from your own humanity, reflecting how your masters regard you. As your second year in the house begins, you become aware of changes within yourself that extend beyond the visible. Physical marks have altered your voice, making it sound flatter and more cautious, stripped away of the regional accent that once identified you as a child of the mountains. Your posture has shifted as well, and you move with the slumped shoulders and cast-down gaze of someone who has realized that being noticed invites suffering. Even more unsettling are the shifts in your mindset. You find yourself instinctively assessing the preferences and moods of free people, although they hold no power over you. You startle at unexpected noises and movements, and feel grateful for minor kindnesses. An extra piece of bread, a guard who is indifferent rather than outright cruel. This mental conditioning might be the system's greatest achievement. It produces slaves who do not merely obey out of fear, but who internalize their own helplessness so thoroughly that rebellion seems unimaginable. The masters no longer need to watch or threaten constantly because their victims have learned to control themselves. Yet, amidst this atmosphere of calculated dehumanization, small acts of defiance survive. Slaves find subtle ways to preserve dignity and human spirit. They exchange stories of their homelands to keep alive memories their masters seek to destroy. They craft art from scraps, tiny sculptures hidden in walls, songs softly hummed beyond the ears of overseers, and poems written in languages unknown to their captors. Above all, they bear witness through quiet, whispered conversations. In fleeting moments of solitude, they share their stories and affirm one another's pain. They recall the names of those who have passed away, making sure these forgotten souls are not entirely wiped out from history. They record acts of brutality and safeguard proof of atrocities that their society refuses to admit. This act of witnessing becomes a form of defiance by asserting their own humanity and the truth of their anguish. The enslaved people oppose the dominant narrative that depicts them as satisfied belongings or willing participants in their own oppression. They hold on to the hope that one day someone will hear their accounts and acknowledge their reality. However, such resistance demands immense bravery and carries lethal dangers. Slaves found speaking in their mother tongues might have their tongues removed. Those caught sharing food or comforting fellow captives could be separated or sold to harsher owners. The very actions that sustain their humanity also expose them to punishments aimed at erasing it. The house itself plays a pivotal role in this tale. Its marble corridors resonate with the spirits of innumerable victims, and its ornate walls hide rooms where unspeakable deeds unfold each night. The stunning mosaics and vibrant frescoes provide a stark and disturbing contrast to the human suffering within. Art and horror exist side by side in this place, mirroring the deeper contradictions of a society built on such foundations. During the third year, witnessing the agony of others causes something within you to shatter, something you never imagined could break. This transformation takes place in the midst of a particularly grand symposium, one held to honor a recent military triumph over a neighboring city-state. The attendees outnumber previous gatherings. Their revelry is wilder, and their cruelty more inventive. You are summoned before a group of young nobles, just slightly older than you but already intoxicated by wine and the power they have inherited. They have created what they perceive as a funny challenge, a contest to see who can provoke the most amusing reactions from their human playthings. Each aristocrat takes a turn issuing commands that grow increasingly degrading, while keeping score as if they were children playing a game with knuckle bones. As you endure their humiliations, a profound change occurs within your mindset. You stop thinking of yourself as a person subjected to horrors and instead begin to see yourself exactly as they do, a mere object for their entertainment. The last connection to the boy who once tended goats in mountainous fields snaps completely. This psychological death is almost a relief. When you have no hope or honor left to guard, surrender brings no more suffering. You transform into the ideal slave, anticipating every desire before it is spoken, accepting every indignity without protest, living in a state of total obedience that requires no thought or emotion. The supervisors notice this shift and reward it. You are given finer clothes, more consistent meals, and a cell with a genuine window contrasts sharply with the expressions of other slaves who regard you with a mix of envy and dread as they realize what you have become and comprehend the cost you have endured for these small privileges. Yet even amid this emotional numbness, fleeting moments of clarity remain. You watch the household's routines with the detached curiosity of someone observing a theatrical performance. You detect recurring behaviors among the guests, cycles of cruelty and excess that follow repetitive patterns. Slowly, you grasp the cruel economics of pain that sustain the entire system. The estate depends on a steady influx of new victims. Young slaves seldom survive beyond a handful of years before they are either shattered beyond usefulness or too old to suit their master's tastes. Some perish from illness or injury, others are sold off to brutal gladiator schools or harsh mining sites once their youthful beauty fades. A few mysteriously vanish overnight, their destinies unrecorded and mourned by no one. This constant replacement demands frequent trips to the slave markets. Occasionally, you accompany Demetrius on such excursions, serving as a testament to what rigorous training can achieve. The irony is not lost on you. The once trembling boy who faced the auctioneer now helps assess new arrivals for his master's collection. You observe the terror etched on youthful faces, yet feel a hollow void. When Demetrius seeks your judgment on a particular boy's potential, you respond with cold, analytical evaluations drawn from your own bitter experience. This one will. Resisting too much leads to the need for breaking, because that one is already too damaged to justify the effort. The third demonstrates. They offer a chance for long-lasting service. The new slaves look at you with desperate hope, seeing in your survival some sign of endurance. They fail to grasp that mere survival and truly living are worlds apart. They cannot realize that the person standing before them died long ago, leaving only an empty shell programmed to obey. During one market visit, you meet a boy who strongly reminds you of your younger self. Identical dark hair, the same frightened eyes, a desperate search for kindness in a suddenly hostile world. He is perhaps 13, small for his age, but with the lean strength of someone raised on tough labor and simple nourishment. Something flickers in the deadness behind your ribs as you observe him for a brief moment. You recall the feeling of being truly human. The sensation is so unexpected and intense that you actually stumble, causing Demetrius to grab your arm and ask if you are unwell. You lie, saying the heat is overwhelming you, but the truth is more complex. Seeing that boy has stirred something you believed was forever lost. Not hope, precisely, but a recognition that the person you once were deserves sorrow. The life stolen from you held worth even if no one else saw it. The boy gets bought by another household, saving you from the cruelty of witnessing his change, but his image stays with you for weeks, haunting your dreams in ways you have not felt for a long time. With many years of experience, you suddenly find yourself recalling your mother's cooking, your father's laughter, and the sensation of wind against your face as you ran through mountain meadows. These memories are dangerous because they threaten the numbness that allows you to function day by day. Yet they also remind you that beneath your imposed identity, fragments of your original self still survive. The dilemma is whether these pieces are worth clinging to, or if complete surrender would bring relief. The answer emerges during a different gathering, one that is quieter than usual. The attendees are older gentlemen, philosophers and politicians deeply engaged in a serious exchange about justice and the ideal society. You serve wine and listen with practiced invisibility, like an unnoticed household item. They debate the ideas of a renowned thinker, arguing whether virtue is something taught or something inborn. One speaker claims some people are naturally destined for servitude, born with deficient souls, unfit for self-rule. Another counters that character is shaped by environment, and that slaves might attain virtue under other conditions. The irony is crushing. These men who abuse and torment the defenseless discuss virtue while their actions betray it. They speak of justice while inflicting great harm, and theorize about perfect societies while manufacturing hell. The earth lies beneath the control of those in power, but as you listen to their arguments, a significant truth becomes clear. Their cruelty is not excused by their philosophical sophistication, it intensifies it. They possess the intellectual ability to comprehend the immorality of their deeds, yet they deliberately opt for malevolence. These are not unenlightened savages operating on impulse. They are learned fiends who have justified their atrocities. This understanding brings an unusual clarity. Suddenly, you realize that the system does not stem from ignorance or primitive thought. It is the outcome of conscious decisions made by individuals who understand better, but choose otherwise. The exquisite art, the profound philosophical debates, the groundbreaking political changes, none symbolize ethical advancement. They simply exist as varied modes of human creativity, existing side by side with boundless brutality. Years unfold under this clear-eyed gloom. You master the craft of unseen service, drifting through the household, like a specter that occasionally becomes tangible when required. You observe the arrival and breaking in of younger servants, note the relentless cycles of aggression and exploitation that remain unchanged, witness the unceasing parade of esteemed citizens discarding their public facades when alone. On certain evenings, you stand by your modest window, gazing at the same stars that once sparkled above your family's rooftop. You ponder whether your parents still live, whether they remember what you once were. Have you ever reflected on the son they sold to stay alive? You picture your siblings grown, possibly with children of their own, sharing tales about the brother who left when they were young. Yet, these memories no longer cause pain. They resemble distant melodies, beautiful yet disconnected from your present reality. You have learned to cherish them without yearning for what they symbolize. It becomes a kind of meditation, this ability to hold on to memories without clinging. The end, when it arrives, comes without notice or spectacle. You might be about 25 now, although exact age means little in this place, where time is measured not by seasons, but by suffering. Your body bears the marks of many years of mistreatment, scars that never fully healed, joints that throb with past injuries, and a persistent cough hinting at trouble deep in your chest. More importantly, your usefulness is fading. Those who once competed to claim your services now barely acknowledge your presence. New slaves appear with fresh beauty and untarnished spirits, making your practiced obedience seem ordinary instead of remarkable. You are becoming what every slave eventually becomes, unseen in a new way, ignored rather than desired. One morning, Demetrius summons you to his quarters and informs you that you are being sold to work in a mining site high in the mountains. This change is not framed as either punishment or reward, but merely as a financial choice, as your worth as household amusement has lessened. Despite being below the upkeep expenses, you still face many years of grueling toil ahead. The mining camps are where captives go to slowly fade away. Everyone understands this truth, you included. The labor is exhausting, the environment hazardous, and life expectancy is counted in mere months rather than years. It is not exactly an execution, yet it cannot be called survival either. You hear this news with the same emotional numbness that has defined your existence for such a long time. Death in the mind or death in the body, what real difference does it make? You have been lifeless in every significant sense for so long that the end of biological activity feels almost superfluous. However, as you get ready for transfer, something unforeseen takes place. Marcus, the boy who arrived about the same time as you, comes to see you on your final evening in the familiar cell. He has somehow managed to endure and even flourish in his own unique way by becoming a personal assistant to Lysander's wife. His duties are lighter, mistreatment less common, and meals more consistent. He slips a small piece of metal into your palm, sharpened to a point. Though crude, it is practical, a tool capable of opening locks or veins. He remains silent, but his message is unmistakable. You have the power to decide how your story will conclude. That night, gripping the metal fragment, you weigh your possibilities, attempting escape, though the odds are minuscule and failure would result in severe consequences. The pain was so intense, you could use it as a tool against those holding you captive, experiencing a fleeting moment of revenge before the unavoidable end. Alternatively, you might choose to inflict it upon yourself, deciding the moment and manner of your departure from this life. Both choices hold their own allure. The idea of escape sparks the hope of freedom, although in reality, it would likely be short-lived, ending in recapture and further suffering. Violence offers a sense of vindication, letting you deliver a portion of the anguish you have suffered. Suicide promises control, allowing you to claim dignity rather than humiliation in your final moments. Yet, as dawn draws near, you decide on a different path. Instead of taking the weapon for yourself, you conceal it in a place accessible to other slaves, passing on the possibility of choice that Marcus entrusted to you. The story of your own end may be close, but others are still unfolding, and perhaps one will reach another outcome. The trip toward the mines leads you through landscapes, stirring old memories. Mountain trails bring back thoughts of childhood escapades. Clear streams call to mind the times you caught fish with your bare hands. Villages appear peaceful and familiar, inhabited by families that might hold your surviving kin. You do not attempt escape, since the iron bonds would make running impossible, and the guards are seasoned at thwarting such plans. Instead, you use this journey to bid farewell to the world you are about to leave behind. You watch eagles glide above, and recall your youthful dreams of flying. The scent of wildflowers reminds you of your mother's care and warmth. In the garden, you hear the wind rustling through pine trees and catch distant echoes of your father's voice. The mining camp turns out to be everything you feared and even more dreadful. Hundreds of enslaved workers endure conditions so harsh that household servitude seems like a luxury by comparison. The tunnels are cramped and precarious, liable to collapse without any warning. The air is thick with dust that burns the lungs and blurs vision. The work quotas are impossible, designed solely to squeeze out the maximum effort before inevitable death. Yet, even in this worst circle of torment, you find something extraordinary. The enslaved people have formed their own community with unique ways of resisting and supporting one another. They share meager portions of food when they can, take turns caring for those too weak to labor, and maintain intricate communication networks that stretch throughout the entire camp. Most significantly, they hold on to memory. In hushed voices during rare moments of rest, they recount stories from before their capture, speak the names of cherished relatives, describe diverse traditions and customs from numerous cultures, and preserve languages that their captors have tried to erase. They witness each other's humanity in ways their oppressors cannot. Your own life becomes part of this living narrative. The boy from the mountain village who survived several years in an Athenian household. The child sold to settle family debts who faced unbearable cruelty, yet clung to pieces of his identity. The young man who chose to pass on hope, even when it felt impossible to feel. The end does not arrive through violence or dramatic events, but through simple weariness. Your damaged lungs eventually give in to the relentless attack of stone dust. Your fragile body collapses after countless tunnels have caved in. You pass away quietly in the darkness, surrounded by fellow laborers who vow to remember your name and carry your tale onward. Yet, this is not truly the conclusion, because stories like yours never have definitive endings. They resonate across generations, whispered in places where power refuses to glance. They remind us that behind every great civilization's triumphs lie countless unnamed victims whose suffering enabled those successes. The classical world that we admire for its art, philosophy, and political innovations was constructed on a vast and systematic foundation of human misery that is almost impossible to grasp. The very culture that introduced democracy, theater, and rational thought also normalized the total dehumanization of entire groups of people. These were not contradictions, but rather interconnected facets of the same system. If we are honest, we must admit that similar systems are still present today. They are better concealed and polished by layers of legal intricacy and economic complexity, but their core mechanism remains the same. Powerful individuals continue to exploit the powerless. Societies maintain their comfort at the expense of others' suffering, and vulnerable people still vanish into structures designed to consume them. In a world where children are exploited through trafficking, many maintain plausible deniability to avoid responsibility. Society spends time debating philosophical matters, such as consent and autonomy, while pharmaceutical companies create widespread addictions and fund studies on mental health. Technology, originally meant to connect people and provide education, often turns into a mechanism for preying upon and manipulating vulnerable young individuals. This same moral blindness that once allowed ancient Greek intellectuals to torment slaves as they philosophized about virtue now lets modern individuals consume products made through child labor while simultaneously advocating for human rights. The same mental separation that enabled respected thinkers to justify cruelty permits today's leaders to disregard systemic abuse, all while speaking gracefully about justice and progress. We convince ourselves that humanity has moved beyond such savagery, yet the evolution of human cruelty tends to refine rather than end it. Systems become increasingly complicated, justifications more elaborate, and victims further removed from those who profit from their suffering. Nevertheless, the fundamental exchange remains unchanged. Some individuals' pain is transformed into pleasure or profit for others. Ancient Greek gatherings, where slaves endured torture for entertainment, find their parallels today in industries that sexualize children, social media platforms that intensify self-harm among adolescents, and economic structures built on exploitation. Throughout history, there have always been systems that treat people as if they are expendable. The faces may change and the technologies improve, yet the readiness to sacrifice the most vulnerable for the comfort of the powerful remains unchanged. Perhaps the most alarming constant is how these modern institutions shield themselves behind complex intellectual arguments, similar to those found in ancient Greece. Elaborate legal structures conceal basic moral dilemmas. Economic theories act as a shield for exploitation, and technological advances serve as a justification for neglecting fundamental human kindness. We create stunning works of art while ignoring harsh realities, compose heartfelt poetry while children vanish into abusive systems, and invent groundbreaking technologies while algorithms designed to boost engagement lead fragile young minds toward ruin. We engage in deep philosophical debates about ethics, even as the simplest ethical principles are broken every day in our name. The boy, whose story we have followed in these pages, died unnoticed in a mine deep in the mountains. His name has vanished from records, and his pain has been erased from official accounts, silenced by those who found his truth inconvenient. Yet, his experience resonates through time in the voices of all who have been treated as less than human for the gain of others. Tonight, somewhere in the world, another child is being sold to settle family debts, and another young person is being shattered by systems constructed to exploit. Taking advantage of their weakness, another individual is realizing that the society they believed was founded on honorable values actually stands upon hidden layers of cruelty. Their narratives remain unfinished. Their voices continue to call out for someone to hear, to acknowledge, to remember who they are, and respect their humanity. The real issue is not whether such events occur. They happen endlessly, everywhere, concealed in plain view due to our collective choice to ignore them. The question is whether we will persist in the age-old custom of moral blindness that allows us to enjoy the benefits of widespread cruelty while keeping our sense of ethical superiority. Will we continue convincing ourselves with reassuring falsehoods about human advancement, while real people suffer unseen in the shadows cast by our enlightenment? Or will we at last admit that the cost of our civilization has always been borne by those deprived of any choice in this bargain? The boy working in the mountain mine lost his life for the same reasons children perish today, because societies have perpetually found justifications for the unimaginable when it serves their powers. The marble corridors still resonate with his screams. The exquisite mosaics still hide the marks of innocent suffering. Even now, within our dazzling cities and modern institutions, the same timeless horrors manifest in new guises and speak through modern tongues, while the core malevolence remains unchanged. The essence stays the same. We represent them, and they embody us. The sole distinction lies in time, and time never served as a limit to human brutality, merely a justification to overlook it.